This NFL season just gets crazier and crazier. So let's recap week 14 with our weekly vibe check where we rank every NFL team's week. Seasons have been altered, some teams were eliminated, and some teams have now found themselves at 6 and 7. I hated myself for that too. I will say, a lot of teams had really bad vibes this week, so this one was pretty hard to rank. And just to reiterate, we are ranking how each team's week went, because sometimes I get comments like, how could the Rams be at 21? And I'm like, the Rams are good, but they had an off week. I'm ranking how the weeks themselves went. This is not a power ranking. With 4 teams on bye, and every team's bye week now in the rearview mirror, it's time to count down. At number 28, the Washington Commanders. The Commanders, who before the season I predicted would have the highest scoring offense in the NFL, not only got shut out this week, but have now been eliminated from the postseason. Jaden Daniels' career has mirrored RG3's, which means it's only a matter of time before he has a god complex on Twitter. He re-injured his elbow in this game, and now he's out for the upcoming week. The Commanders were getting their kicked in, as evidenced by their 2 quarterbacks, Daniels and Mariota, who both had passer ratings lower than that of a QB who only throws incompletions. The defense had no answer for JJ McCarthy, who had the best performance of his career. As if things couldn't get any worse for this team, Zach Ertz, the beloved veteran, tore his ACL, and now he's out for the rest of the season. A true masterclass in despair for a Commanders team that literally just this year, this calendar year, made it to the NFC title game. 3 turnovers, 0 points, and now Dan Snyder is probably grinning from ear to ear. At least your new stadium won't be named after Trump. Colts fans, if you expected to see yourselves at the very bottom, I hear you, and I've listened to you. Fortunately, or unfortunately in this case, you won't have to wait much longer. At number 27, the Indianapolis Colts. This was close. The edge went to the Commanders because they were eliminated from the postseason, but the Colts were right on their tail. This team went from being a legitimate Super Bowl contender to now being out of the postseason picture. Awful vibes. 1 week after losing Sauce Gardner to a calf strain, they have now lost Daniel Jones for the season with an Achilles tear, which happened on a throw. He didn't even get hit, it was just non-contact. The guy played through everything, and then his leg ultimately just gave out. Now, the Colts are down their star cornerback, their quarterback, who anyone with a pulse should have been rooting for, and their next 2 first-round picks. Not anger-inducing, not throwing blame at someone, just really sad vibes. It's only a matter of time before Shane Steichen uses a moving van from Baltimore to ship in bubble wrap for Jonathan Taylor. The Colts season has truly fallen apart, and vibes could not be worse. Was Riley Leonard awful in relief of Daniel Jones? Not really. Did Jonathan Taylor still get a majority of the touches? Let's be honest, he would have if Peyton Manning was their quarterback. The Colts are so down bad, they called the AARP, the American Association of Retired Players, and asked for Phillip Rivers. He used a colonial pen, signed that deal, and became chapter 872 of why this season was the funniest season I can remember in quite some time. At least Colts fans got to watch Fernando Mendoza be a hero that the Jets can't wait to ruin. At number 26, the New York Jets. Another lower body injury. This time it was Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor left the game for the Jets after a first quarter interception for an appointment with Dr. Pat McGroin. Then Brady Cook came in, or as ESPN called him, unknown player, and played exactly like who he is. A player with the most third-stringer name I've ever heard. No tutties, 3 interceptions. Brady Cook played so poorly for the Jets at quarterback, you'd think they had just taken him with a top 5 pick. The 1 score for the Jets came on a punt return by Isaiah Williams, who helped the Jets properly implement their strategy known as holy do not let our offense on the field, please. It was a pitiful afternoon for the Jets, who have also been eliminated from the postseason. They won't have good vibes until they reach their Super Bowl, the 2026 NFL Draft. At number 25, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons also got eliminated from the postseason, and we all should have seen that one coming. Now let's return to the who injured their leg watch. It's Jalen Walker. The first rounder whose highlight reel Howie Roseman likely jerked it to this past draft season left the game in the second quarter with a quad injury. As for the game, it was a tale of 2 halves, as the game was tied heading into the second half, but then the pass defense stunk. The special teams unit didn't stand a chance against Rashid, the need for speed Shaheed. Try saying that 5 times fast. They allowed us to believe in Kyle Pitts for 1 more week, and I hate you, Kyle Pitts. There's just no way that Raheem Morris is going to keep his job after this season, and they're essentially playing to see how high the Rams will pick in the first round. Brutal vibes for a Falcons team that has yet to make a postseason appearance since 28-3. And number 24, the Cleveland Browns. It's always one side of the ball that sucks for the Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders was a big play merchant. His completion percentage was iffy, but his arm and connection with Harold Fannin kept the Browns in the game. I don't know if he's the Browns franchise quarterback or if this is an insanity run, but all I know is the fans who keep doing mental gymnastics about how Shedeur Sanders isn't good are gonna have to work a little extra hard. Shedeur threw for 364 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and was also their leading rusher with 29 yards, and he had a rushing touchdown. Unfortunately, the Browns spent so much time trying to make sure Shedeur Sanders won the QB battle between him and Cam Ward that they completely forgot that Tony Pollard exists. And I mean completely. Tony Pollard had 2 long rushing touchdowns and was the star of the game on offense. But because Kevin Stefanski forgot to use the hot hand on the game-tying 2-point conversion, the Browns offense fell completely flat on the game-tying 2-point attempt, and the Browns took the L and are now eliminated from the postseason. Vibes are good for the Browns offense. For now. But that decision making with Kevin Stefanski makes me question his self-awareness. People are calling for his head, and he made Quinshon Judkins the guy that throws in the do-or-die situation. I'm not even fully convinced that Shedeur Sanders is the Browns franchise quarterback, and even I'm appalled. And now, Cleveland's eliminated from the postseason. It's another lost season, though there are a ton of pieces for the Browns to build around. Yes, including that guy. And number 23, the Kansas City Chiefs. Last year, the year belonged to the Chiefs. This year, the Chiefs belong to the year. If you don't believe me, look at the Chiefs' record of 6-7! Patrick Mahomes, what may have been the worst game of his career. He had 19 incompletions, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a whole lot of nothing. It was a true disaster class in what happens when Patrick Mahomes is your leading rusher. Fun fact, the Chiefs are 0-4 when Patrick Mahomes is their leading rusher. Kansas City has truly not been that good this year, and the Chiefs are not going to win their division for the first time since Patrick Mahomes was a sophomore at Texas Tech. Vibes are not good in Kansas City, even though people still plan on clinging to that the NFL is rigged narrative that they think got Kansas City to a bunch of Super Bowls. You'd think that Travis Kelce's swan song would do it the most, but no, not even close. Even though Patrick Mahomes stunk, the real story here should be that the Texans defense is just that good. And number 22, the Cincinnati Bengals. The only good things that came out of this week for the Bengals were the fact that Joe Burrow is really good, save for those 2 passes, which I'll get to. And Bills fans thought I was a good sport about the downhill spiral. Your nice comments meant a lot. But to quote modern day philosopher and handsome man Alex Schubert, what the f was that? This game was a dick-slinging fest between Joe Burrow and Josh Allen for about 3.5 quarters. Then that happened. Christian Benford took a Joe Burrow check down all the way to Niagara Falls. Burrow's very next pass was batted by Jordan Phillips and intercepted by AJ Epinesa. And then my fist went through my TV. If anyone's selling a TV, I would like one. T. Higgins got his bell rung twice and somehow stayed in the rest of the game. While your average fan who hasn't left his hometown since 1987 will admire his grit, T might not remember his social security number in 5 years. Speaking of wide receivers with head issues, Jermaine Burton was finally released, which will allow him to get the cops called on him in a different city. Will we ever learn? And number 21, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh man, you should have had this one. This was a game the Bucs should have won, but it ended up being a trap game that we all know and love. They gave up 2 long rushing touchdowns to Tyler Shucks. We should have had our eyes on him. The offense was not efficient at all, as they had 5 failed 4th down conversions. The 4th of those led to the Saints game-winning TD, and the 5th of those led to the Saints game-winning... That's it, they just won the game. This was a really bad one to lose. 2 out of your last 4 games are against Carolina, who you're tied with for the division lead, and they now control their own destiny. They're playing the Falcons on short rest too. The Bucs have to recover or the playoffs will slip from their grasp. And number 20, the Arizona Cardinals. What are these players even doing anymore? I guess accumulating fantasy points for Jacoby Brissett, Michael Wilson, and Trey McBride? I mean, yeah, I guess. Can they just fire their coaching staff? Any minute now. Gannon ain't it. At number 19, the Philadelphia Eagles. We should have called this game an Uber in the second quarter because, oh my goodness. The offensive woes hit an all-time high as Jalen Hurts turned the ball over 5 times. But A.J. Brown topped the century mark, so he sees no problem with the offense. So to reiterate, Jalen Hurts threw 4 interceptions and had 2 turnovers on the same play because he forgot the rule of Pokemon, which states that the birds are susceptible to lightning types. They only had 1 touchdown all game, which came on a Saquon Barkley scamper and score. Even with this absolutely disastrous offensive showing, the Eagles only lost by 3 in overtime because Vic Fangio is just so good at his job. He just can't be thrilled with the offense. And worst of all, this game deprived us of a Monsters Inc. tush push. How could they? At number 18, the Baltimore Ravens. Dude, I don't know what makes a catch and what doesn't. I don't know. All I'll say is this. Even if the Ravens got over, they had 3 more chances to score on that drive, and they couldn't. They had a whole other drive to score, and they couldn't. Everyone will point fingers at what they can point fingers at because that's how finger pointing works. But whether or not it's justified, if you don't score on one play, just take it on the chin and try to score on the next one. Isaiah Likely really is the king of the coulda scenario. The toe on the sideline in week 1 of last year. This potential catch against the Steelers. The fumble touchback on Thanksgiving, which, okay, I was actually cool with that one. But it's always something with this guy. At number 17, the Dallas Cowboys. Defense go poopy once again. It was also the kickoff game too, which is a shame considering the Cowboys kicker has a leg that can do literally whatever it wants with a football. Tom Kennedy averaged 40 yards per kick return on his 3 returns, which proves that sometimes the Kennedys can destroy Dallas and not the other way around. They did, however, get smoked by a Lions offense that still has it out for the Cowboys ever since Taylor Decker reported as eligible. Oh yeah, and they gave up 3 touchdowns to Jahmyr Gibbs, I guess because the Cowboys do everything for old time's sake. At least Ryan Flournoy got to be him. At number 16, the Chicago Bears. This one was a bummer. For Bears fans, it obviously sucked. It was a slow start for them, as it started with 4 punts and a field goal. But the second half, much better, though it was too little too late. Caleb Williams got them going with touchdown passes to Colston Loveland and Olamide Zaccheaus, though the game-ending pick to Keyshawn Nixon brought the entire city of Chicago to its knees. That was a fun game, but a rough ending. And vibes aren't fantastic. They're still down Rome Odunze, and the Bears were overtaken by the Packers for the top spot in the NFC North. Ben Johnson has still coached a really good team, but the Packers may be too tough to compete with. At number 15, the Las Vegas Raiders. They didn't totally the bed, and they still maintain their tank so they can draft an inevitable Mark Davis bust. The good news for the Raiders is that Kenny Pickett might be starting next week, which is certainly a sentence I just said. He looked okay in relief of Geno Smith as he threw a touchdown to Shedrick Jackson, proving the Raiders will always have a player on their active roster that I totally forgot exists. Plus, Dave Portnoy lost a bet, and in response, he called for the murder of Pete Carroll. Anytime Dave Portnoy is pissed off is a good day for America. That eternal frat bro. Before I go any further, if you like what you've seen so far, you can click the like button and subscribe to the channel. I live stream every single week, and like I said earlier, I got a lot of positive responses from a lot of Bills fans who were happy to see a Bengals fan cry like a little bitch after a Christian Benford pick 6. I live stream every Bengals road game, and I'm gonna start doing Sunday night games. Hell, I might even do some live streams during the playoffs. I've really enjoyed seeing all your nice comments and the inevitable not so nice ones. I'm excited to keep it all going. But for now, back to the video. At number 14, the Los Angeles Chargers. Well, this game was a hot mess, and someone had to win. The Chargers pulled out the overtime victory thanks to Justin Herbert's one functioning hand, and the running back duo of Kamani Vidal and Omarion you, I'm so back Hampton. The Chargers offense did just enough to pull out the victory, and the Chargers defense did their job of delivering eggs to the Eagles fans who weren't quite done with Kevin Patullo's house just yet. The Eagles-Chargers game was drunk as hell, which nobody should be surprised by considering the first lady of the Chargers is literally named Beer. I will never run out of beer jokes! Back to the video. At number 13, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Good job. Aaron Rodgers put up yards, scored once through the air and once more on the ground, which allowed him to show that Unk does, in fact, still have it. DK Metcalf put up 148 yards against the Ravens, allowing him to get revenge on the wrong bird team, though the rushing defense had their second straight stinker, as they gave up 217 rushing yards to the Ravens. Keaton Mitchell is electric and he deserves his flowers. With this, the Steelers are back on the top of the AFC North, paving the way for their inevitable wild card drubbing. Vibes are good, and they will be pretty good until approximately the first quarter of the wild card round. At number 12, the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee has been eliminated. I mean, they're already eliminated, but that doesn't mean they still aren't trying to build good vibes for the future. Cam Ward doesn't have that much around him, though he's shown he's not that bad by any stretch of the imagination. He's the Ford Focus in the trailer park. He's not flashy, but he'll get you by, and he will be okay if the Titans can build around him. You know who was flashy? Tony Pollard. 25 rushes, 161 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A superb effort by the Titans running back that everyone seemingly forgot can be electric as all hell. While the Titans defense didn't do well in containing Shedeur Sanders, they were lucky that Kevin Stefanski forgot that he had a quarterback on the final 2-point try the Browns had. With that, the Titans got their first win under their interim head coach. And they're still going to get a top draft pick. Squeaking out a couple wins here and there would really help Cam Ward's confidence as he heads into year 2. At number 11, the New Orleans Saints. Big morale booster. Kellen Moore is looking to establish himself as a head coach, and he's done a pretty good job at that. Has Tyler Shuck established himself as the franchise guy? He at least might have for now. He wasn't excellent as a passer. He actually wasn't that good. But in his defense, the Saints don't have a lot of options outside of Chris Olave. But my goodness, those 2 rushing TDs absolutely saved the Saints this week, and vibes are pretty good. For a team that needs good vibes oh so badly, the Saints proved they can believe in both their head coach and their QB, and they can start to build around their guys. Plus, they got to potentially play spoiler for a rival, and that's always fun. At number 10, the Buffalo Bills. Chaos from start to finish. Josh Allen gave a masterclass in demolishing the Bengals defense that I could perform serviceably well against, and Christian Benford was a monster. Christian Benford had Jamar Chase's number all day, including on a pick 6 that altered the seasons of both teams. Arguably his best performance of the season. In the pass game, the tight ends did the heavy lifting, as Dawson Knox led the team with 93 receiving yards, and Dalton Kincaid had 41 and a touchdown. While James Cook had a small case of the dropsies at times, including right at the goal line, he still had a pretty serviceable day. The Bills won this week because of huge clutch plays. Josh Allen played hero ball multiple times, but when you're playing the Bengals defense, that's like rescuing someone from drowning in the kiddie pool. At number 9, the Minnesota Vikings. The much maligned quarterback performed really well this week. Wait, I already talked about Shedeur Sanders. Oh, McCarthy did well too. I see what you're saying. 1 week after being shut out, the Vikings were on the winning end of a shutout. JJ McCarthy was efficient and effective, as on 23 pass attempts, he had 16 completions, only 2 of which were to Justin Jefferson. Is he about to have a Twitter crash out like AJ Brown? The world may never know. The Vikings defense had a sack on Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota, and the defense performed so well that Daniels didn't return even though he was eligible, because scoreboard. The Vikings likely aren't going to win the division, but this week was a morale booster. At number 8, the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are now 11-2. They squeaked by a division rival. Marvin Mims continues to be a big play threat everywhere except the receiving game, like I so thought he was going to be this year. Bosef Nixon dinked and dunked his way around the Raiders defense as he had 31 completed passes, none of which were for longer than 15 yards. The Broncos had possession of the ball for nearly 2/3 of the game, which was bad news for anyone who was hoping Geno Smith would have more opportunities to make mistakes. The Broncos defense held Ashton Genty to 30 rushing yards, they limited their own mistakes, and they still maintain the number 1 seed in the AFC. Broncos country, feel pride. At number 7, the Detroit Lions. Of the offensive performances Detroit has had against the Dallas Cowboys in their last 2 games against them, this was somehow the worst one, as in their last one they had a 47 burger on them. This one was only 44. Step it up, boys. The rushing offense had 4 touchdowns, with Jahmyr Gibbs accounting for 3 of them. Isaac Tesla, meanwhile, got a 3rd quarter touchdown for the Lions to prove that if you start too slow and steady, you will get beaten by the hair. It was an offensive slugfest where the Lions ultimately came out on top. They're now 8-5 and a game and a half behind the Packers for the division lead. Also, it was good to see Amon-Ra back this week after an injury scare last week. We like him. At number 6, the Houston Texans. While everyone wants to talk about how the Chiefs are washed, me included, the conclusion we should draw from this week is that the Texans defense is just that really good. Patrick Mahomes in this game threw 3 interceptions, one to Kamari Lassiter, one to Jalen Petre, and one to Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year nominee Azeez Al-Shaair. The offense? Well, it did just enough to secure the victory. Dick Bruises was inefficient as a bell cow back, but he did have 2 catches for 8 yards, including a 9-yard TD because those numbers make sense. Dario Gumbawale, who may I remind you has a college basketball legend of a sister, shout out Enrique, had a crucial 5-yard rushing touchdown in the 4th quarter. CJ Stroud defied the odds by having not 1, but 2 bombs to Nico Collins. Usually it's just 1, but that was good. 2 is an improvement. Vibes are fantastic in Houston, and now they won 5 in a row. If the Texans can fix their offensive inconsistency, they will be a legitimately dangerous team. At number 5, the Miami Dolphins. Well, the Dolphins have won every single one of their games since they fired their GM. It's now 4 in a row, which means their record is, 6-7. While Tua Tagovailoa continued to be slightly better Dylan Gabriel, the rushing offense was the star of the show today, which is always good when you're up by 1 trillion. It was the Jalen Wright and Devon Achane legacy game as they combined for 199 yards and 2 touchdowns, or as Jonathan Taylor calls it, an off week. The defense had the Jets' number this week as they had 3 interceptions on Brady, Max Brosmer Cook, and sacked him 6 times. A dominant effort overall. They throttled the Jets, avoided a major injury with Devon Achane, and continued Chris Greer's hate-watching streak. At number 4, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are this year's Minnesota Vikings. You can unironically call them the 2nd best team in the NFC, but even with Sam Darnold having a great season, it may not be enough to win their own division, so that 2nd best team will have to end up being a 5 seed. The first half started out slowly this week, but then the Seahawks had a phenomenal second half as they scored on every drive but one. It began right away with a Rashid Shaheed house call, where I thought he was going to be tackled until realized that was the Sky Cam. Sammy D then lit up the scoreboard with 3 passing touchdowns, 2 to JSN and 1 to Cooper Kupp. The Seahawks have been one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Vibes are really good. Mike McDonald is really good. They won the Battle of the Birds and eliminated Atlanta from the postseason. At number 3, the LA Rams. Matthew Stafford is back on top of the MVP race, I think. He might get that legacy MVP, who knows? But he's so back. Drake may have to wait another year. I'm not sure. But with this absolute drubbing of a win, the Rams maintained possession of first place in the NFC. Matthew Stafford put his sleep number bed to good use by giving the Cardinals an opportunity to put their season to bed in one. Stafford went back to the old days of slinging it to his top guy with Puka Nacua. He came out of his Puka shell by notching 167 receiving yards and 2 scores. Once the game was out of hand, the Rams let Blake Corum and Kyron Williams make all the noise they could, and boy did they. The duo combined for 25 carries, 212 yards, and 3 touchdowns, with Blake Corum averaging over 10 yards a carry. It's a massive win by the Rams, who have returned to their spot as the number 1 seed in the NFC. At number 2, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags continue to dominate the Colts in Jacksonville. Now, granted, it doesn't give them a ton of credibility that it happened against a 3rd-string QB, but you never apologize for a win in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence capitalized on the absence of Sauce Gardner by wreaking havoc around the Colts secondary. He threw 2 touchdowns, one of which was to Jacoby Myers, and the other was to Tim Patrick, which proves that the only person less trustworthy than a guy with 2 first names is a guy with 2 first names that are Brian Thomas. Travis Etienne took full control of the backfield as he found the end zone twice, once from 28 yards and 1 from 3 yards. 28-3. Caw, Falcons fans. With this, the Jags are now in first place in the AFC South, and after their 4th straight win, they have now clinched a winning record. Had it not been for Mike Vrabel, Liam Cohen would have been a real top candidate for Coach of the Year. But at number 1, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers have now won their 4th straight, and vibes are unbelievable. Jordan Love's first drive of the game ended with an interception, but he was impeccable from that point on. He threw 3 touchdowns, 2 to Christian Watson, and 1 to Bo Melton on Bo Melton's only catch of the game, which was from 45 yards. The Bears kept it a close game, primarily because of their get away with murder while defending Micah Parsons strategy. But I digress. They held off a Caleb Williams comeback and sealed the victory with a Keyshawn Nixon pick in the end zone. When a 4:25 game goes down to the wire between 2 really good teams, vibes are automatically impeccable. It's a good win for Green Bay, who now sit atop the division and will be hard to stop down the home stretch of the season, even if Josh Jacobs isn't fully healthy this week. And that'll do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and again, Thank you guys so much for the kind comments you left on my last live stream. Made the Bengals loss feel a little better, but I digress. If you like this video, you can click the like button and subscribe to the channel for the sexiest sports content on the internet. But for now, stay tuned for more sports content that you didn't ask for.